certainly give themselves a chance with those characteristics.
Well, Team 1, Dan Burke, the coach, Indiana Pacers. He's assisted by Chris Fleming, assistant coach with the Brooklyn Nets. Chris played at Richmond, and he also played in Europe quite a bit and coached in Germany.
Oh, yeah, great. And the German national team coach there
yes.
for a minute with our Dennis Schroeder.
That's
from
right.
Atlanta.
Yep.
So we've become good friends with Chris. Terrific coach.
Of course, the Indiana Pacers had a terrific season, and Dan Burke has done a great job through the years with their defense.
Yeah, no, Indiana was a great story this year, and their front office did just an incredible job on that trade.
Yep.
Kevin Pritchard and his team did just a fantastic job with Vic Oladipo and Sabonis.
Yeah, 2 cornerstones maybe going forward.
No doubt.
2 young players. Sabonis, of course, the son of Arvydas Sabonis, the legendary Lithuanian.
That was a hard draft for us. We tried really hard to get up and draft Sabonis.
Yeah.
I loved him at Gonzaga. And Donnie Daniels at Gonzaga was my first job
wow.
at Cal State Fullerton way back. And even watching Sabonis in, I think it was Malaga?
He was in Malaga playing.
As like a 16-year-old, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, just going back to Sabonis and talking about him some more, it's really interesting. Although his dad was a legendary player from Lithuania, family, I think, lives a lot now in the south of Spain, as you mentioned. Doma's playing in Malaga, but yet he was born in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he had a great career with Gonzaga. He had a game, 36-18 against Illinois, and, that was when I heard you guys in the league, think that he could be a lottery pick, and not all the mock drafts caught up on that until later on in the spring, but it's gone on to be a good cornerstone piece for the Pacers.
This time of year, too, there's a great deal of kind of specialized agent workouts, and Sabonis' draft workout, though I wasn't there, but our staff was there at the time, and reportedly he shot lights out.
Yeah.
And that was probably like the final step for him to cement himself as a clear lottery pick.
Yeah. Well, he shot it a little bit at Gonzaga, but he didn't have the freedom, certainly. This is an 11-0 start right now for Team 2. Team 1 with the ball. That's the young man, Blaž Meseček from Slovenia. It's his second year in the Italian league. He's an early entry. He's born in 1997. So unlike the college players who had until May 30th, Wes, to pull their names out of the draft, the international guys have up until 10 days before the NBA draft. So a kid like Meseček has until, I guess it would be June 11th, with the draft being the 21st.
Yeah, a lot of players oftentimes are in this event partly for exposure, early. Many players will stay in, but oftentimes they won't stay in unless one of two things. They either get a guarantee somewhere in the second round, and then a lot of agents have a strategy where they'll want their player to go undrafted, so then they have freedom going forward.
Right.
So it's an interesting time of year to try to figure out
where you stand. And you mentioned something early. Sometimes just putting your name in is the first time teams will recognize a guy and say, "Hey, the kid from Romania, Conte. You might ask your international guy, right?
For sure.
Hey, this kid Conte put his name in. What do you know about him?"
Yeah, no doubt about it. Awareness is a big part of this event.
That rebound by number 44. I want to just say his name, okay? Haralampopoulos.
Wow, that's pretty good.
How's that?
That's pretty good.
From Greece. He's been around a long time.
Yeah.
Nice pass by Gabriel Galvanini from Brazil. He's known in the Brazilian NBL as a hustle guy. Small forward, high energy. I mentioned all 29, well, not all, 30 teams. 29 of the 30 teams are here. A lot of international scouts. I see some teams with 3 and 4 scouts here.
And a couple of GMs, Masai, or president.
Yeah.
Masai's here. They've done just a terrific job up there in Toronto.
Yeah, they sure have.
Especially drafting around the edges, finding players, undrafted, in the second round, late in the first.
Fred Van Vliet's going to be, he's going to make some money this year.
It's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one.
That's a tricky one.
But a great find.
Well, Norman Powell and Pirtle and DeLon Wright, a kid.
Siakam.
Pascal Siakam. But they do have some interesting decisions because there's not a lot of there's no cap space. They've got to make a decision on Fred Van Vliet. What do you do in that situation when you've cultivated a young guy, undrafted, and now he's about to go out onto the market and command some pretty good offers?
He's a restricted free agent, so
right.
In most cases they'll have the right to match. There's a unique scenario where I think you could actually lose the player in the new CBA, but Toronto probably won't have to deal with that.
That was Dusan Rizdic right there, the young man from Arizona. He's from Belgrade, Serbia. He attended Sunrise Christian High School in Wichita, Kansas, and then basically was a 4-year starter for, well, maybe a 3-year starter, but he played a lot of minutes for Sean Miller.
Sure.
And this year he teamed with DeAndre Ayton up front. Pretty massive front line, and I think it helped DeAndre because he had to play away from the basket some, particularly defensively, with Dusan in the lineup.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a question. You watch the current NBA, everybody's switching. I mean, the playoffs right now, switching 1 through 5. So the ability to move on the perimeter, and then just the ability to create space on offense, the premium on shooting and versatility is just continues to grow.
Yeah, but I think if there's one negative about Dusan watching him this year, I got a chance to see them play at Arizona State, is the defensive lateral quickness on the perimeter.
Yeah.
We saw it from Ayton, but with Dusan, not so much. And as you mentioned, we talked at lunch about the versatility of the league right now and how big guys have to move their feet and defend out on the perimeter.
The great thing you find is intelligence, physical toughness, competitiveness can give you a great advantage with some size. And those are characteristics that'll help any player.
Right. Well, if I had to predict, I have a feeling he's going to have a long career here in Europe.
No doubt.
And I'm sure his dream is to play in the NBA. But at worst, he's got a chance to do very, very well here, playing on the continent.
Good help.
Well, nice drive again by Ponitka. As they filled out these rosters, Wes, they had more big guys that teams wanted to take a peek at and less point guards. And so the point guards that are on each of the 4 rosters are going to play a lot of minutes. And so I hope Ponitka is in good shape. He was here at the camp last year, the Euro camp it was called, Adidas Euro camp.
It seems that this draft is similar. There's some pretty good point guards in it too, but
more big guys.
There's a lot of big guys in this draft.
Well, it's interesting. One of the having been here since 2004, it's really important to have a good point guard, even if he's not an NBA prospect, to run your team.
No doubt.
It's almost like summer league.
Yeah, no doubt.
When you have to have a guy, even if he's not going to make your NBA roster, but he can run the team so you can figure out whether your draft picks can play or not.
Yeah, so we used to say this about the D League, which is now the G League, But one of our goals was to find a 50-game point guard, because with so much change, if you could keep your point guard, that'd be, just quite not good enough to get called up, or maybe not quite good enough to go overseas. It allowed you some continuity on the floor with so much change. Players getting assigned, players getting bought out, players getting, NBA opportunities, trades. And so absolutely, this camp, like Summer League, is no different. You want that stability at the point guard position to make it easier.
I remember the Sixers brought a guy in one summer, and I thought he would make a pretty good Summer League point guard. His name was T.J. McConnell. I said, man, he's going to run their Summer League team great.
What a great story.
That is a great story.
Like Van Vliet.
Mature Maker, there's the big fellow we were talking about. From South Sudan to Australia, now up in Canada.
So we had the opportunity to interview his brother, who shared his background, his story. It is a fascinating story, an inspirational story, and it's what's right about basketball in the world.
We had him at Under Armour All-American camp, and it was the final day, and most of the superstars were tired. And I said to Thon, his brother, Matura's brother, I said, so you're going to shut it down today? He goes, I'm playing.
That's great.
And that's the kind of guy he is, and that's why I think that the Milwaukee Bucks pulled the trigger. John Hammond and his crew. There's a roster. That's Team 1. And Vasilios Charalampopoulos. I like saying that.
It's a fun name.
Yep. Mentioned Trey Bell Haynes, played at Vermont. Yeah, the history, here's team number 2.
Okay.
And let's see, Javi Lopez Arostegui. Been working on that one.
This is a master class here of pronunciation.
I used to trick people doing the NBA draft.
That's pretty good.
Practice the names, and everybody thought I knew every player because I could say the names right. And what I would do when I would come to camp, I would ask the players. I'd say, how do you say your name?
Great. Yep.
And so when we get to the draft and the NBA would give me their pronunciation guide, I would say, no, that's not how he says his name. It's Charalampopoulos.
That's great.
And it's so much fun, Wes, because I'm so immersed in college.
Yeah.
When I do go to an NBA game and I see guys that were at this camp, it's amazing the family atmosphere, the Joe Ingalls and the Raul Netos and the,
for sure.
The Danilo Gallinari. So many guys came through here, and at a time, as you know, where we were fighting the Skidishvili, our Darko Milicic, and all of a sudden we've seen now the NBA with over 100 international players on rosters to start last season.
Yeah, no, the game is truly global, and even style of play, has had a great deal of impact. You see people taking full court fouls now, a small thing that, just a couple years ago, we never did, and teams in Europe have been doing it forever.
Yes.
Or internationally have been doing it forever.
Or the spread pick and roll.
Yep.
There is Gumbo. Stefan Gumbo, who we've been watching for a long time. He was at the Basketball Without Borders camp in 2015 in New York City. One of the things the league has done a cool job of is now having, as you know, a Basketball Without Borders camp around the NBA All-Star game.
Yeah.
And that started in 2015, and it was a great way. I remember Jamal Murray was in New York at that time, Bender.
Sure.
I know you remember that. And what a great way to initiate these terrific young players into what could be in store for them in the NBA.
Yeah,
coming to All-Star Weekend.
Yeah, and a couple of those guys in that event in New York, that was bitterly cold, I might add.
I remember.
Not that we don't know it can't be cold in New York, but it was unusually cold that February. That was, I think, was that 2015?
15.
That was a special. That was a special February for us. We had 4 All-Stars that year. It was a pretty remarkable run under unique circumstances.
Yep.
But that was a great event, and the NBA has done a great job of leveraging those events. And just like this event and NBA Summer League, has become an amazing event. And players out of this event that may not get drafted very well may end up on a summer league roster as a continuation of their path through the professional ranks of basketball.
Oh, that's an absolutely great point. And now what I love about the NBA at the moment is it's a 12-month sport. You know, once we get through the finals and then the draft and then free agency, right? July 1 and then the summer league.
It never ends. It never ends.
You probably felt like it never ended for you.
It never ended. It's a blessing for all of us, and who basketball has been so great to. And it's it's just something you got to balance with family at the end of the day.
Well, there's that high energy again from Matur Maker. And, he grows on me. And I've watched him since he was, a sophomore in high school. But a guy that plays that hard, the history with his brother Thon.
For sure.
Handling the ball a little bit for a big guy.
No doubt. One of the challenges is that static evaluation versus the kind of broader evaluation. And that even happens once you bring a player in your program. And as a young player, one of the challenges that we always try to reframe to is not productivity. We're not trying to measure productivity of a young player, but we're trying to measure progress. Because if a player's making progress, they may not be ready to be productive on that court, but you're going to continue to invest your time and resource in that progress. And a player it's no different in this event. For
right.
a player like
Maker?
Yeah. Like Maker, you just want to see steady progress along the way. And as you say, that continues to pique your interest.
What I love about watching the NBA right now is to see, we all love the superstars, but I love seeing the guys that take 2, 3, 4 years to figure it all out.
Oh, there's no.
I think of Chris Middleton, from Milwaukee.
Second round pick.
Yeah.
Thrown in a trade.
Absolutely. And, guys, they're how about PJ Tucker? How good was that?
It's fantastic.
Guy played in 6 countries in 5 years and was, his NBA career was hanging by a thread.
Yeah, no. We tried to acquire PJ Tucker and ultimately went a different direction in a trade a couple years ago. Long time been a PJ Tucker fan. We had him in minicamp in Cleveland back in the day. What a competitor.
Well, I watched him in college and didn't, he never made a 3 in college. 0 for 3.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, think about that.
Oh, man, how the game has changed.
Yeah.
And that's just a testament to PJ and what kind of worker he is, and how intelligent he is to understand what it takes to redefine yourself and redefine your game to have a real role in the NBA. Oh.
Yeah, Rizdich a little bit out of control, picking up the charge. If you're just joining us, we're at the NBA Global Camp in Treviso, Italy. As I mentioned, the camp started in 2003. The Reebok Euro Camp, then the Adidas Euro Camp, and this year the NBA has partnered with this facility and the people here at in Treviso to take over the global camp. It's always been sanctioned, as you know, and NBA people work the camp, but now this is truly an NBA event.
Oh, nice.
Yallo, the German.
Ooh.
It's Kareem Yallo. He's been an outstanding player on the German junior national team for a number of years. He's one of those guys who's born in '97, so his name is in, but he can pull out of the draft up until 10 days before. If you want to know what this camp means to the NBA, I think the Jazz this year on the playoff roster, there were at least 5 guys I remember being from here at camp. Joe Ingles was here. Rudy Gobert was here. Ricky Rubio made an appearance. Raul Neto was here.
Neto.
Somebody else I'm missing. Jonas Jerebko.
Jerebko.
Yeah.
We drafted and traded Raul Neto to Utah, and we also like Neto in this camp.
Yeah. Yep. Raul came a couple times.
He's just a terrific person.
Yeah, he is.
What a great person.
He is. Got quality minutes this year for Utah as a backup to Ricky Rubio.
Another great story in the NBA is the Utah Jazz this year.
Yeah.
The job of Dennis and his group in the front office, and then Quinn and the coaching staff, and the run they made, especially after a challenging offseason, losing an unbelievable player for them. To bounce back the way they did as quickly as they did it's what makes this fun.
Yeah, and think about during the regular season, they lost Gobert for a while.
No doubt.
Ricky Rubio was out for a while. They weathered the storm. Yeah. And I went to training camp, and they're not the only team that's great in this area, but their player development is really outstanding.
Yeah, no, we were fortunate to have Quinn on our staff in Atlanta.
That's right.
And he was overseas for Seska, working with Ettore Messina, and he came to us, and he had just an immediate impact, great demeanor, great energy about him, and just a fantastic basketball coach. And on that staff in Utah is one of my personal best friends, Alex Jensen.
Oh, yeah.
Who we hired to coach our D-League team at the time, currently the G-League in Canton. Who's a longtime Majerus player.
I coached against Alex at New Mexico. That last basket, Trey Bell Haynes from Vermont. He's Canadian, so he adds a little flavor to the global camp. Again, there'll be 4 games today, and there'll be a second game coming up with the older players, teams 3 and 4. And then a real treat later. If you want to see some young players that are going to play in the NBA someday, stay tuned, because the international select team has 4 or 5 or maybe 6 guys that you and I will look back on in about 4 or 5 years and say, remember we broadcast that game?
That's cool.
From Treviso. Really talented group of guys. NBA teams know about Killian Hayes already and some of these other great young players. But Killian Hayes, by the way, from France, 16 years old.
You made mention of this earlier in regards to the international players in the NBA, but what is it like for you with all of your work at ESPN in the NBA now? You must have relationships with all of these players.
It's fun. It really is. I'll tell you when it really hit me. In 2010, I was covering the World Championships of basketball, the FIBA World Championships in Istanbul. And ESPN didn't fly us over until the second week of the tournament. It was a 2-week tournament.
Yes.
And they called up and said, hey, is there any way you can get on a plane and go to Istanbul? And I said, hell yeah. And Serbia was playing, and I was right behind the Serbian bench. That's where our broadcast table was. And a couple of the Serbian kids turned around, and they saw me, and there might have been 8 of those guys of the 12-man roster that had come to this camp. And I had coached a couple of those guys on my team. There's a nice drive right there. Yep. But it was so much fun to watch. That's Galvanini, the young man from Brazil. Take a look right here. We talked about him being a high motor guy, and you got a great example right there. But the relationships I've made, not only with the players that were at the camp that I got a chance to coach. I was the only non-NBA guy that coached at the camp.
But you're not really a non-NBA guy.
Well,
I mean, you're like at every NBA event. You've covered the draft for the last 15 years, and all of us NBA guys are calling you to try to figure out who we should be drafting after time.
Well, that's kind. And I've always been made to feel part of these kind of events. But that's the cool thing, to see the kids have success in the NBA. I mean, Joe Ingles, who we talked about from the Jazz, he did not have a great week here.
Yeah, no.
And he struggled, and Patty Mills struggled.
Yeah.
And but yet, obviously, they've gone on and had really good NBA careers. But the first time Tomas Satoransky stepped on the court. He was 15 years old playing with this level of competition.
That's amazing.
And so it's been fun. And I love international hoops.
Yeah, no, it's a great game. You know, it's always amazing is how fast these games are because
FIBA,
of the timeouts
yes.
and the FIBA rules and it's
Absolutely. Well, we're playing NBA rules, but I love the FIBA rules.
Yeah.
I love not calling timeout unless the ball is dead.
Yep.
Here's another great FIBA rule. Offensive rebound. Clock gets reset to 14 instead of 24.
For sure. Speed the game.
Yes.
No doubt.
What are the adjustments these kids have to make? The really good ones that come to the league, or how less of adjustment is it now than it was 10 years ago for an international kid to be on an NBA roster and fit in?
Yeah, so it's probably a bit counterintuitive, but you know the reason you make the NBA most often is what you do really well, and it's just seems to be the nature in basketball that our coaches are trying to help us in the areas that maybe we have to improve in. And so there's this focus on improvement oftentimes, whereas to get a chance to establish yourself, it's really about doing something at the NBA level, whether that's rebounding, defending, shooting, playmaking. And so to take that one step further, it's versatility then that creates more of an opportunity to play, and that's versatility in terms of doing multiple things in the game: defend, rebound, shoot, play make, or play multiple positions. We were having this conversation at lunch. You know, if you can play two positions, and oftentimes players want to define themselves as I'm a guard or I'm a wing or I'm a big. But if you can play two positions, that's potentially 48 minutes that you can get on the court. And so that's a key: versatility and really just cultivating what you're good at.
And some of the teams that have made deep runs in the playoffs have shown that versatility.
For sure.
Boston for sure. Obviously, Golden State, we know about their versatility, but that's a different level with those superstars. But
the pace and the randomness and the skill in the NBA Finals and competitiveness is incredible.
Yeah, there's no
truly incredible.
Team one's made a little bit of a comeback after getting down 11-0.
No.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Kratzer, the big German. They got him for a little push-off on the way up. Gumbo, take a look right here. Watch the left arm. Yep, good call.
Gumbo with the great block.
Yeah. And there's also some European GMs here.
Yeah.
Because obviously most of these guys will not get drafted, so some of these young players can help their careers here in Europe as well. Big thing in Europe is get to a EuroLeague team.
Yeah.
You know, and have a chance to play in the Final Four. That's big up Mike Ochendo. We had him at an Under Armour camp last year in Philadelphia. Mike Uchendu from Brazil. He's one of those kids, he's not real skilled, but he plays hard and battles, and now playing in the NBL. One of the better young big men in Brazil.
You know, one of the messages to these young players who are trying to get to the NBA, and you probably talk to all these college players or players in this camp. You know, oftentimes you'll get, what do I got to do to be in the NBA? What do I got to do? And like the best message is just do everything you can to be the best you can be. Be coachable, work hard, and let the chips fall where they may. And if that means you end up being a really good college player or EuroLeague player or G League player or NBA player, that's all you can do. So it's great to see players out here playing as hard as they are, trying to just prove that they can take that next step in their career.
Yeah, you know what I've noticed the last few years, and I really think USA Basketball has had a lot to do with this, the quality of people coming into the league right now. You know, like I've even talked to some of my NBA friends this year they can't believe the character of a lot of the guys they've interviewed.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, as someone that's been in a front office, you better be better than your problems. Because if you're not better than your problems, there's no reason to have a guy like that on the roster who's going to poison the well. As we take a break right here with 5.5 seconds. Let's see what these coaches have cooked up at the end of the half.
No, speaking on the character front, there's no doubt. It's I don't know if it's the the level of the NBA, social media, everything has a camera, but not being in those interviews this year, but talking like you're saying to many people across the league, the collective character of this group is very high.
Yeah. Well, I know you. I know all you guys check social media before you going on those Instagrams and Twitter pages to make sure guys are behaving themselves. Let's see.
So one of our young guys in the office, I mean, one of his job for 2 months in the draft is do a social media profile of every player in the draft. And you venture to guess that's going on in 30 draft rooms.
I wanted Hala Lampopoulos to make that so I could say Hala Lampopoulos
but you
again.
found a way to say his name again.
Yeah.
I had it as Charles Lampopoulos.
Yeah. We're going to have to ask him. But I like saying the way I do. Hala Lampopoulos.
You're probably right.
No, I don't know. I'll get a text or two from my Greek friends. Well, we're going to go to break. We'll be back for the second half. And this is a lot of fun, but we got a lot of basketball left today, guys. Stay tuned. Some good young players from around the world at the NBA Global Camp in Treviso, Italy.
I have the live stream up too, if that can help.
We are back, start of the third quarter here at the NBA Global Camp in Treviso, Italy. What you're watching right now is a group of young men that play in Europe, professional players between the ages of 19, I would say, and 22. If you're born in 1996, you're automatically draft eligible like a college senior would be. The younger players born after 1996 have to declare the early entry, and they have until 10 days before the NBA draft to pull the name out. 29 of the 30 teams are here watching these young guys. We were talking, Wes, at halftime. I think there'll probably be potentially 3 or 4 kids that have a chance to get drafted in the second round. I'm not sure this year there's a first rounder. But the NBA teams are also here to see some really good young players. As Dusan Ristic, the Arizona Wildcat, misses in close.
Yeah, the second round is oftentimes about roster management, and so working with agents and what their goals are and players is critical. And that helps oftentimes open up the international marketplace for those second-round draft picks, because oftentimes they're under contract and they can't come over.
And so that would be a draft and stash guy.
Yeah,
absolutely. You're taking a guy knowing that you might not need to bring him over for a year or 2 or longer.
For sure. And oftentimes, or the majority of the time, that conversation takes place before the draft, or before you make the selection. So to be more clear. And if the agent doesn't agree to the plan, then you may just move on to the next player.
Got it. Now, when I think of this camp, in my tenure here, 10 plus years, really, this is my 14th NBA Global Camp, formerly the Euro Camp. How about this? How about a guy like Goran Dragic going in the second round out of this camp? Pretty good pick.
Oh my gosh, what a player! what a great competitor. I remember watching him for the Slovenian national team when he was a young player.
Yes.
His backcourt mate was Jaka Lakovic. Is that correct?
Yes, Jaka Lakovic.
Yes,
the lefty shooter. He was more the 2 guard at 5'10".
Yes.
And Goran, the playmaker. And of course, how about Slovenia this year?
Oh man.
Country of 2 million people. Last September they won the Eurobasket, the European Championships, a very big deal over here. And Goran Dragic led the way. And then there was another guy on that team that also had a lot to do with that championship by the name of Luka Doncic, who is destined to be, I think, a top 3 pick in the upcoming draft in less than 3 weeks.
So funny story on Doncic. I think it was 3 years ago. I'm in Spain scouting a couple.
By the way, let me interrupt. That's that international foul you talked
there it
about.
is. Yep.
You foul the guy to stop the fast break that the NBA guys are doing. Go ahead. Tell
Jeff Van Gundy was just on talking about how it's the worst rule in the NBA, and we got to get rid of it, I think, in the finals, game 1 of the finals.
My good friend Jeff Van Grumpy. No.
Hey, I love Jeff Van Gundy because he taught me on TV how to put M&Ms in your popcorn at the movies.
Oh.
And now our family, that's all we do when we go to the movies is we do the Jeff Van Gundy.
Sweet and salty.
That's right.
Well, tell us about Doncic. You were going to.
So I think it's 3 years ago in Spain. I'm on a trip to watch international pros, so players that we may be looking to sign in the back end of the roster using exceptions, minimum player exceptions, maybe a biannual exception.
Kind of like a Joe Ingles type.
Yeah, kind of like a Joe Ingles type. And so I'm at this game, and there's this young player that's playing. He's like 17 years old, and I'm like texting back to our guys, and he was fantastic at 17 years old. And our guys were like, oh, yeah, he's going to be really good. I'm like, he's going to be really good. He is really good. And so at 17 years old, he was arguably the best player in a high-level game in Spain. And since then, he's just continued to just be incredibly impressive, probably capped off by what he's done this year at Real and last year.
Amazing.
Last summer.
Yeah, the MVP of EuroLeague and also the MVP of the EuroLeague Final Four, which is unheard of. He just turned 19, I think, in February. And, the term mature beyond his years, if you saw, if there was a dictionary definition, there'd be a picture of Luka Doncic. And I kind of compare him. I want to know what you think about this. He's kind of got the body type of a Gordon Hayward and the basketball IQ of a Manu.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he's going to be that good that soon. And I might be wrong. Maybe he will be. But he's got an incredible feel for the game.
Yeah, Tony Kukoc, I think, is another one.
That's a great call.
That's jumped out to folks. I mean, he was bringing the ball up the floor at 17 years old in an ACB game.
Now, let me ask you this about Doncic. I've had my NBA friends tell me, in the league, you are the position you can guard. Is he a point guard or is he a playmaking three? He is 6'8", 220. Or is that up to the coach offensively to figure out how to use him in that regard?
Versatility is such a strength.
Yeah.
It's gonna be probably. It's not even going to be probably. He's so versatile. He's going to find his way on the court in many ways. And, we hear all these cliches in basketball about your ability to guard a position. And certainly, that matters. But defense is such a difficult thing to evaluate. Kyle Korver coming out of Creighton was a great competitor and super smart. But people thought he wasn't going to be able to defend. And Steve Nash out of college, people didn't think Steve Nash was going to be able to defend. And Steph Curry was the exact same conversation. Clearly, these three guys have gone on to have incredible NBA careers. Doncic is going to be just fine.
One thing, by the way, Ponitka hit another three, the young man from Poland. And that's the young man I mentioned earlier, played at Montverde Academy with Ben Simmons. So he came over to the States to do a little high school work. But Doncic is a great team defender. He's when people complain about his quickness, I say, wait a minute. How do you account for being quickness of mind?
Yeah.
Both offensively and defensively, he's got an incredibly quick mind. And but would you put him on guards? Would you put him on? He's not guarding Russell Westbrook, is he?
Who is?
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
We've had this conversation about, where's a guy going to guard? Who's he going to guard? And they're all really good questions, but you're not going to guard any of those elite players.
How many rookies can really guard coming into the league? Very few, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
But it's a great debate. The reality is, if they're good enough offensively, they're going to end their competitors with intelligence. They're going to learn how to guard in the NBA.
I'm hoping he goes to a creative coach. Not to say that not everybody – I'm not trying to say that, I just think he's the kind of special talent that I thought Igor Kokoshkov, who, by the way, the first European-born coach now
cool.
to go to Phoenix Suns. But before we call him European-born, we got to remember that he coached in the NBA since 2000. He's been in the league a long time, so he's really more of an NBA coach. But I thought Igor did an incredible job with Slovenia last summer, utilizing him in so many great pick-and-roll opportunities.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think he does for a team, and tell me what you think about this, I think he gives your other playmakers on the court with him, whether it's a point guard or what I would call a mental health break. Like Dragic in the European Championships didn't have to handle the ball for 40 minutes. He could catch his breath on offense
for sure.
And let Doncic handle it. And I'm anxious to see how he's utilized.
Yeah, I mean, that's why he's going to be so good. He's going to be able to play off the ball. He'll be able to play on the ball. He's a special player that is going to be fun to see how he progresses over time.
By the way, Matur Maker was telling Coach Burke, Dan Burke, that he said he's a three-man. And you just saw him handle the
yeah.
You just saw him handle the
Little
ball.
Pick and roll into a shot fake.
Yeah.
Shot.
And he wants to be a three-man, but we're going to talk to him about versatility after this game, Wes. We're going to convince him that he might be able to play, 3, 4, and 5 if he wants to.
Yeah, we just got the minutes game, right? If you can play 3 and 4, that's 96.
Yeah. More minutes, the more positions you
that's
can
right,
guard.
That's right. And the more likely it is you find a role and you redefine yourself.
Yes.
Specialists oftentimes have a hard time early on.
That was a nice pass right there by Xavi Lopez Arostegui from Spain.
Xavi, great name.
Yeah.
Xavi Rabaseda was a player.
Yeah.
Barcelona 2 years ago. We followed him really closely.
Yep. I remember why. In fact, he probably
probably
was
still
at camp.
playing.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think he was here at camp.
Yeah. Great kid. We took him to Applebee's in Independence, Ohio. The best draft meal ever, though, was Sergio Rodriguez, who didn't speak a word of English. We took him to dinner in Cleveland, Ohio, and it took us about 15 minutes to order him a strawberry milkshake that came back as a cherry milkshake.
Oh, man.
Oh, gosh.
There's our guy, Matura, right there, air ball.
Might have got tipped.
There's so many great stories I have. Like, Goran Dragic won the Slovenian championship the year he came to camp. But he promised our director, Pete Fivel, that he would come to camp regardless of what happened. And so he drove 3 hours from Ljubljana, the capital of Slovenia, and he wanted to know. And now you got to understand, Slovenians party hard after a championship. So he got here at 8 in the morning. So he probably got done celebration at 5 a.m. And he said to Pete Fivel, he goes, I want to play. I want to play in the morning games. And Pete said, no, you're going to go to sleep, and then we'll put you in the afternoon game. And he played one game that afternoon. I coached him. We had Nick Batum on the team. How about that team, right?
Wow.
I had
better win.
I had a guy by the name of Bogdan Bogdanovic, now with the Sacramento Kings, who was a young player, right?
Yes.
Now think about that. And
man,
so I told the guys, we were undefeated. I said, look, we got to make Goran look good. And everybody got it. Nobody was selfish. I said, we're going to put him at the point. Everybody's just got to get out of the way, spot up. And we put him in high pick and roll for 40 minutes.
Oh, man.
And then the rest was history. Although he didn't go in the first round.
No.
He went in the second round and been traded a couple times, too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Houston to Phoenix, right? And then
let's see, Houston, Phoenix,
and then Phoenix to Miami.
Yep.
Might be missing one there, too.
I have a feeling. But he did get the big deal. He got the contract.
No. And a gutsy trade by Miami. Include. You know what? He might have been traded twice to Houston.
That sounds right. Houston took him on draft night, traded him, right?
That was the Phoenix Aaron. I think that was Aaron Brooks.
Here comes Maker again, handling that ball.
Oh. There's our guy.
Charalampopoulos. He has been, he's still 21.
Young player.
But he's been around forever.
A long time.
Yeah. He's got 4 FIBA Junior Championships under his belt. Uchendu, the kid from Brazil, but the big Greek, I'm going to call him.
He reminds of Joe Ingles a little bit.
Yeah, he does.
And maybe.
He's a little thicker.
Yeah. But just a smart player, knows how to play.
Yep.
Good passer, unselfish.
Well, he's been the MVP of 2 FIBA junior tournaments in his career, under 20 and under 18. So he's obviously a very good player. He's playing at PAOK right now up in Saloniki. And there you see Rex Kalamian, who's an outstanding coach. And you mentioned the Raptors earlier. What a great job really the coaching staff did. They made a change. They felt they had to, but I got a feeling Dwayne Casey will be back coaching very shortly.
Yeah, no.
And Rex is really well respected in the league.
No doubt. Rex, good guy, terrific coach, been with a lot of winning programs. No doubt he's on the list as a future head coach in the NBA.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
great opportunity for these NBA assistant coaches to come over here and get a chance to work with the international kids. By the way, the international kids love it because they feel that much closer to the NBA because they are being coached by guys that, whether they know it or not, they're watching them on TV. And, you know, these coaches here are all outstanding and have done their part to make NBA players better players. So what a great way to tutor these international kids for 3 or 4 days at the NBA Global Camp here in Treviso, Italy. We're about 20 miles north of Venice, and I don't think you've gotten to Venice yet.
Not on this trip.
But
I've been to Venice plenty of times. It is an amazing
I'm
place.
spoiled because we've made a trip to Venice every year I've come here.
That's great.
And we're 20 miles north. Quick train ride into Venice. I got my purse shopping done for my wife earlier in the week. Great weather in Venice.
Furla?
What's that?
Furla, the Italian brand?
Well, maybe, but I got my little side streets in Venice. I don't go to the tourist spots now.
You're smart.
Yeah. I was wheeling and dealing with some of the vendors down
What's
there.
the mask deal in Venice?
Well, you know, masks are big.
Yeah.
The Murano, China.
The glass.
The glass,
Yeah.
Murano is an island right off of the city of Venice. It's a great place to have a camp. And
We're talking about purses
Yeah.
and glass at a basketball.
And we haven't talked about pizza yet.
And we haven't talked about
We're going to talk about pizza, too. Because we're going to eat a little pizza after 4 games. I can tell you that right now.
Our guy with the rebound, Charlon Popoulos.
There's Galvanini.
Nice play.
Yep, posted up.
You know, one of the things in the NBA Finals, again, to go back to Game 1, and Jeff Van Gundy, Mark Jackson, there's a lot of discussion about posting smalls because of all the switches, or posting maybe perimeter, bigs who aren't necessarily who are maybe more perimeter oriented, because of the switching that we're more likely going to see next year, because it just always happens to be that whatever happens in the playoffs and the finals just works its way deeper into the next regular season.
Well, I got some thoughts about that. And by the way, Galvanini again with that basket on the drive and took that contact. You know, it's funny because as a college coach for many years, we played small and we did a lot of switching. And now what we're seeing is more teams switching, more offensive teams now trying to exploit the potential mismatch. And now you're back to isolation ball a little bit.
No doubt.
You know, so if there's any one complaint I have
is it slows it down.
It's slowed down. And speaking of the Brazilians, Uchendu again.
But that's, again, probably why we'll try to continue to play faster.
Yeah.
Right? To get out of the half court.
That's right.
And to play more random. So there is less of that switching, or less organized switching.
Gumbo. He's another young man I've watched for a long time on the junior circuit from France. He's a high-energy guy, kind of undersized probably for the NBA, but he was also, I think we mentioned earlier, he was at the basket. He's been many of these kids. I think half of the 40 guys on rosters have been part of the NBA's Basketball Without Borders program. And if you're not familiar with Basketball Without Borders, NBA in the offseason will take players and coaches around the world, various countries. They've been to 6 continents. Can't believe Adam Silver hasn't gotten Basketball Without Borders on Antarctica yet, but because I'd make that trip. But 6 continents, many countries, and half of these kids who are playing today are alumni of Basketball Without Borders. Really cool. I think the most recent one is going on, maybe still going on in India right now, right? Or it just ended. Kelly Olynyk was over there.
Yeah, Darvin Ham.
Darvin Ham was over there.
One of our assistants over the years. Great guy, great coach.
Yes.
Another guy that deserves to be an NBA head coach. But speaking of the BWB, Basketball Without Borders, the NBA has also done an incredible job with these new academies throughout the world, which is more of a grassroots developmental effort. And I was at the NBA Draft Combine a couple weeks ago and spent a little bit of time with Kim Bahuni,
Yes.
who runs NBA International, and she was talking about just the impact is just incredible, and the resources that the NBA is dedicated to develop basketball around the world is really special.
And we're going to see a lot of those academy kids coming up later on today. We got 4 games today. You're watching game 1. These are teams 1 and 2 of.
Oh, nice
There's
pass.
a nice pass. Finished by Leon Kratzer, big German kid. Another one of those kids that's been playing a long time. He's been in 5 FIBA junior tournaments. And that pass was from Mesicic, the Slovenian, who's now in his 2nd year playing in the Italian Pro A League. And Mokeko, young man we've highlighted in the first half. You mentioned how much you like that size and body, and he's born in 1998. He's still 19 years old.
No, there's no doubt that he has the physical and athletic makeup of an NBA guard.
Reminds me a little bit of a guy that was an alumnus of this camp. You ready for this? Patrick Beverly.
Patrick Beverly.
Pat Beverly was probably, as I recall, the first college player to be at this camp because he was ineligible his senior year at Arkansas, so he went to Ukraine to play.
Yeah.
He played for Bob Donowald Jr.
Yeah.
And because he was in Ukraine, Pete Feivel, the camp director, said he's allowed to come to Eurocamp.
That's great.
And what I remember about Pat Beverly, after every game, he went around the gym and shook the hands of every NBA decision maker.
Smart. We had him at a workout in Cleveland back, and then I believe it was Houston, right? That was the first team to sign Pat. Great pickup by the Rockets.
Yeah. Apparently he's ahead of schedule. I just read today he's 3 months ahead of schedule for microfracture surgery. But that guy would have swam across the Atlantic to play in the NBA. You know, he had that much desire.
What a great competitor.
Yeah.
What a great competitor.
But that's who Mokeko reminds me of, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if and Pat's become better than that, but a good enough shooter now.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
You know, Isaiah Thomas was here at this camp, the younger one. We brought some high school kids over for a few years. Billy Walker, who played at Kansas State, was here. Malcolm Lee. Kareem Yallo with the ball. He's a small forward playing in Germany. Young player.
Billy Walker was an amazing athlete. Double ACLs.
Yeah.
Is that right? That slowed it down.
Yep. And his skill level was kind of low anyway. He was
Yeah.
more the athlete. But yeah, you see Kratzer working inside. His dad played was a very, very good player in Germany. He's one of those kids I thought as a young player at 16 would have a chance to play in the NBA. He's kind of leveled off a little bit. He's taking a blow right now.
Oh. Here we
There you
go.
go. Ooh. Pretty good ups there by Kareem Yallo.
Great foul.
Midway through the third quarter, we're playing with running time. The clock will stop in the final minute of the game. You know, we'll get into it a few times over the 3 days, Wes, but, you know, as I think back to the time I was here coaching, you know, and I mentioned some names already, Pat Beverly, Nick Batum, Mirza Teletovic came out of this camp. Nobody really knew about him.
What a shooter.
Yeah. Mentioned Urebko and Neto and Joe Ingles and Rudy Gobert. If I had to guess, I'd say there's probably still 40 to 50 players on rosters that, you know, are alumni of the camp. Nearly 100 drafted. Lucas Nogueira.
Yeah.
Big Bebe.
We drafted Lucas.
Yeah. Yep.
And he played one game in this camp. with NATO.
Yeah.
And it must have been one of those deals like what you talked about earlier with Dragic.
Yeah.
Because I think they just said run, pick, and roll, throw it to
Yeah.
the rim, and have Lucas dunk it.
Exactly.
And he did it like 10 times.
And block everything on
and
the
he
other
blocked
end.
everything on the
and
other
don't worry
end.
about goaltending.
Don't worry about anything else.
No, that's true.
It's kind of like the old Tom Davis press, right? Don't worry about the end line. Just
get
pressure
up
the
there.
ball.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the roster and brings back memories. Evan Fournier, Bismack Biyombo, Jan Vesely, of course, Valanciunas, Gallinari, Rudy Fernandez was here early in the camp, Nick Batum.
And it's going to continue, Fran. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And it might not be the first round of this draft like we talked about, but it might be a second round pick that ends up being, a guy like Dragic that ends up, an NBA All-Star.
Yeah,
down the road.
And by the way, as we'll see later on today, Rizdich with the missed jump shot. He's played a little bit away from the basket today, trying to show his perimeter game. But if there's an NBA All-Star in the camp, it's likely to come from some of those international select kids we watch later on, because there are some really outstanding players that people are going to get their first look at.
I'm excited. I haven't seen any of those young players yet, so it'll be a first look at them. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yep. Game 2 will start 15 minutes after this game. See more of these older players, and then we'll see the NBA Academy teams made up of players, as you mentioned, from the NBA Academies around the world. See a young man from Senegal who's 15 years old and 7 feet tall, who's a tremendous athlete. NBA Africa is in Senegal. That's the amazing thing, too, PJ Carlissimo is going to join us throughout the 3 days. PJ's here with the NBA Academies. He was on the staff of the Dream Team in 1992.
92, the original.
Yeah, the original Dream Team. Chuck Daly, Mike Krzyzewski, PJ Carlissimo, and you think about it, how basketball has changed since the Dream Team, and just how the world has shrunk closer together.
No doubt.
Paul Gasol, guys like that, credit the Dream Team with inspiring them to play basketball, and to look at the NBA now, every team's got international guys. And they're not all stars, you always get that, hey, who's the last, like I remember when I yelled at Knicks fans on draft night because they were booing Porzingis, and Dirk and Pau Gasol and maybe the Greek Freak, they're transcendent players, right?
For sure.
But just the role, look at Philadelphia and how they used Ilyasova and Bellinelli in the playoffs.
No doubt.
Or even Aaron Baines for Boston,
Aaron Baines is a great, and Aaron Baines was undrafted.
Yeah.
And we actually tried to sign him. Danny Ferry went to go watch him play live, and the Spurs saw Danny in the stands. And I believe Brett Brown had a relationship with Aaron from Australia.
Yeah.
And the Spurs signed him before we got there.
As I recall, was he in ACB then? I know.
I believe so.
I remember. I'd
have to go back and check.
Yeah. Oh, nice drive.
Nice finish.
Yeah. Ponitka. And as I mentioned, his brother, you scouted him.
Mm-hmm.
I'll call him Matt for short, but played the Nike Hoop Summit.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have every stat in front of me, so I'm going to say it's like 7 or 8 years ago, but his older brother was a good enough player that he got invited to the Nike Hoop Summit, which is a pretty good honor.
Oh, nice pass.
Yeah, nice pass. Trey Bell Haynes with the assist. I mentioned earlier he played on some really good Vermont teams, the Catamounts. Up until this year, dominated their league. And then UMBC came along and won the tournament.
Unbelievable.
And then first team to ever upset a number 1 seed as a 16 seed, knocking off Virginia.
messed up a lot of brackets, including Noah Wilcox, our 8-year-old son.
I would say they messed up about 99%
Right,
of the brackets.
no doubt. Not Mike Scott's. We had Mike Scott in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Had a really good year with Washington. Mike Scott is one of the class acts in the NBA. What a great person.
I watched him in college, and you know what? It seems like he came to the league at the right time because he's got that
perfect.
Positional versatility. Nice drive. And a good hard foul, but there's Moketko again.
There's no doubt that he is going to make a little bit of a name for himself with that power, athleticism, and competitiveness.
Now, that's a kid. He's only 19. He's going to turn 20 in a month.
Yep.
That's a kid. If you let's say you fall in love with him here, and you got a 51st pick.
Yeah.
That's a kid that you might tell his agent, correct? Hey, listen, if he's in, we're taking him. If you leave him in, we'll take him. How would that work? How would that conversation go?
Yeah.
Because he's going to be better a year from now, but you won't have a chance to draft him at 51 a year from now.
Yeah.
So how would that conversation go back and forth?
Yeah, so oftentimes it starts with what the agent and player would like to do and maybe their contract situation. Sometimes they want to come right away. If they want to come right away, it's less likely to be drafted. But trying to make a decision this time of year, it would take you would tell, as the NBA front office, you would give word to the agent and the player that you'll select them with whatever the pick may be. Sometimes you can say a pick. Sometimes you can say a specific pick.
Got it.
And then you would also try to build in a plan that you would want to come a year or 2 years from now would be the plan. And whether or not the player actually comes to the NBA, signs a contract, is oftentimes secondary to the pick, because we can't guarantee,
your roster
what our roster
situation,
situation, what the financial situation is going to look like, nor will the agent want to guarantee what their financial position could look like. Out of this camp, you could sign, let's just say, I would have to do a little bit of work to figure out the buyout situation, but let's just say he had a $1 million buyout, and a team like Fenerbahce wanted to pay the buyout, but then sign a larger contract, pay him more money, and then on the back end, that contract would be larger as well. Well, that agent and player is going to maintain that flexibility as well. So you can retain the player's rights. You can try to build in a plan to say we'll sign you a year from now. But most often, it's working together to try to build the framework of how you can guarantee the player being selected.
Let's see what we got right here. That'll do it. Team 2 with a 50-41 win. And because the shot clock went off, the officials will put it back to 1.7. By the way, I have no problem shooting that ball with the lead. I don't want a 24-second violation. So
you don't want the turnover?
No, I don't want the turnover.
It's a team turnover, though.
If the guy's holding the ball?
Yeah.
To me, shoot it. Shot clock on, even if you don't try to make it. I hate when they take a violation and take the ball out of bounds. And pretty soon a team's going to be up 14 and start taking a violation with
Is this like the BCS? You got to score points to improve your position?
But there's a reason there's a shot clock, as you see the handshake line. Yep. Some of these kids have played against each other. In fact, a lot of them have played in European